Welcome to the Exam Room Podcast, brought to you by the Physicians Committee. Hi, I am the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll, and today we're going to be speaking with a social media star. I stumbled across her because her personality is fantastic. She has a healthy message, and quite frankly, she makes me laugh. But more importantly, she also brings hope to so many people out there who are struggling with rheumatoid arthritis because she herself was diagnosed when she was just 15 years old. But through a lot, she's discovered that the way that you eat can help out quite a bit. And so today we're going to be speaking with DiGiacomo here on the Exam Room. Ali, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm excited that you're here too, because you are a genuine bona fide TikTok superstar. How many followers do you have right now?
I think like 124,000, which is crazy.
She says humbly, 124,000. No, that's pretty cool though. Like it's a fun message. And what strikes me is that TikTok is really skews to a younger demographic. And I know with my friends, when I was in my 20s, we certainly weren't talking about RA, but how many people are you hearing from who are your same age who are like, yeah, this is my struggle too?
Hundreds, actually thousands, which I thought was impossible because when I got diagnosed, I didn't know a single person with RA. Actually didn't know a single person with autoimmune disease. So the fact that I talked to hundreds of people with it blows my mind. I think it's the coolest thing ever.
I would imagine so. And that's kind of the cool thing about social media is that it brings this entire world together. You know, the distance is kind of irrelevant at this point, and that's really important when you're talking about spreading a healthy message. So you're 15 when you were diagnosed. I would imagine that was not the easiest thing in the world for you. At 15, you think like the world is your oyster. You don't have a care in the world. But what kind of symptoms were you experiencing, and how was that affecting your quality of life?
Yeah, so I was 15. I was at school at the time. I was actually at boarding school. And we thought actually it was a water polo injury. So I was at water polo practice and I was a really great swimmer. And I was unable to keep myself above water, which is very unusual for me. I had swam my whole life. When I got out of the water, my knee was about 2 to 3 times its size. So immediately we thought it was an injury. But I had to get my knee drained, so my knee aspirated, where they put a big needle in and they pull out fluid. When the doctor pulled out the fluid, he immediately said, "This seems like rheumatoid arthritis." This is before any testing, MRIs, or anything. And then a couple MRIs I had to get to, multiple knee drainings. A couple months later, I had surgery. And the surgeon saw my joint and he said that my joint looked like that of a 65-year-old person's joint.
Mm.
And I was 15 at the time. So the quality of life after that was pretty difficult. I actually didn't tell anybody at school about it. I was so young at the time, I didn't really think much of it. I was like, okay, I didn't really think it was going to be long term. I was going to have this for life. I kind of brushed it off because I did quite well after surgery. I didn't have to go on medication right away. I did have to give up sports for half a year, and it did ruin my swimming career. I was trying to go to university for swimming, and that's where it really hit me that this is changing my life. But I didn't tell anybody for a good 10 years that I had RA and that I was struggling with it. It's because I didn't know anybody who was dealing with that. And I didn't want to let my friends know. I don't know why. I was not like ashamed, but I was kind of embarrassed about it. Especially with my swimming career. And I was really embarrassed that I was no longer a great swimmer. So yeah, it did hit me mentally in high school, and I wish I spoke up about it sooner. And I really love to bring awareness, especially for kids with JIA, juvenile idiopathic arthritis, so they don't feel so alone.
Yeah, I mean, being a teenager is awkward enough, and you're trying to figure everything out, and then you're facing this struggle, and you do. I mean, whether it's this or anything else, so often kids feel like they're the only person in the world who's having this problem, and why me? And so I think that it's really cool that you're able to put this out there. I would imagine, even now, especially being on TikTok, you're hearing from kids who are in high school who are like, "Oh my God, thank you."
I am. Every time I get a message from a kid in high school, or even their parents, like I have parents reach out to me, like my teenager or my kid is going through this, like how can I help? And I think that's the coolest thing, because also parents have to go through that as well if they don't know anything about RA. And I have a couple of high school friends who I encourage, and I always tell them to speak to other people who are at their age and are going through it, because it will really help, because there are some kids who have RA and it's an invisible illness. And so maybe their peers at school won't understand, like, why aren't they taking the test? Why aren't they going to prom? Why aren't they, they're having exceptions, maybe like an exam, they could take a little bit longer because it's invisible. They don't know. So I can kind of see where they feel very isolated and very alone, or maybe they're using a cane and then the kids make fun of them because it's an old person's disease. So it warms my heart every time I talk to somebody in high school, because I know what that's like.
So, yeah, okay. Well, let me ask you. I mean, you were just talking about having to give up sports, but did it affect other aspects of your life, like going to prom? Did you have to use a cane? Anything like that?
Not in high school, so I was able to go to prom. Sometimes I have issues walking, and that was really challenging. Actually, it hit me right after college. So I was okay for a while after that, but after college, I had just graduated. I started my first job. That's when my RA came back pretty aggressively. I was unmedicated at the time, and I could not walk. And my job was to be a production assistant on a TV show, which, if anybody knows what that's like, you're on your feet all day. And I couldn't walk. And I remember one of my coworkers being like, "You better hide that or else they're going to fire you." And I was like, "Oh gosh." And I panicked. And I had to talk to my boss about it. That's when I had to get a cane. I actually had to leave the job. They're very nice, very accommodating. So if anybody's really nervous about telling your boss something like that, don't be. They were very sweet. They tried to keep me on, but I made a decision to leave, which was really hard. And I did have to get a cane. My boyfriend got me a very beautiful cane. But that was a really hard thing to do and have to use a cane. I was 21 at the time. And I was unable to work, which was really challenging. And I would use a cane, I would use crutches, or any wheelchair assistance I could get at the grocery store or at the airport. And I still didn't get a handicap uh, tag for the car. I don't know why. I really needed it. And at the time I was like, this isn't happening. I don't need this. I'm 21. And I didn't do it. And I do regret that.
So we hear about how it's limiting your life, but what does an actual flare up feel like for those who have never experienced it? I mean, it obviously it's debilitating, but talk to us about it.
Yeah, there are different types of flare-ups. So anybody really dealing with rheumatoid arthritis or an autoimmune disease, you can see flare-ups in different ways. For me, when I was younger, a flare-up would be when my knee would was fluid, so synovial fluid. It really inflamed. My body thought that there was an infection there, so all my blood cells would go there to try to help it. And so my knee, if I could explain it, felt like there was really hot oil inside of my knee, and it was huge. It would hurt to the touch. It was warm, and I could not put any pressure on it. So I couldn't even make it from the couch to get to the bathroom. So my mom would have to come, like, help pick me up and get me over there because I couldn't put any pressure on it. And so for me, that's what a flare-up was. Now, that's an extreme flare-up. There are also flare-ups where you just feel very achy, very sore in those joints. Like I have it in my elbow. Maybe some days my elbow can't extend. It could fill with a little bit of fluid and it's kind of stuck. Um, and so it could be that, or it could just be achy. It ranges. But for me, the biggest flare up is when I have to go to the doctor to get it drained. So they go with a big needle and they drain the fluid out. And it could be a lot. I think the most I had was like 75 cc's. I ended up having to get my knee drained 7 times in 7 weeks. So I was getting it drained once a week.
Wow. Yeah, I hear about that with athletes having covered football for a number of years. You get a knee injury and they have to go in there and they have to drain it. I know what 75 cc's is. I mean, you could daggone near fill a pool with that. I mean, that is just an insane amount of fluid. And yeah, that just doesn't sound like a whole heck of a lot of fun to me whatsoever. I do want to shift it over to nutrition now. Obviously, that's such a huge part of what we do here at the exam room. And so I'm curious about what was your diet like when you were 15 and you were first diagnosed, and then up until your early 20s and you were working as the production assistant?
My diet was awful. Nobody's Nobody spoke to me about it. I was a kid. It never came up in, I guess, in 10 years of me having it. nutrition never came up with the doctors, with anybody, with my peers, adults. Nobody spoke to me about it. So my nutrition was pretty bad. However, with patients with rheumatoid arthritis, we tend to have pretty bad gastro problems, which nobody told me. And when I went into college, high school, I was losing lots of weight and I was not able to keep anything down. And so my nutrition was cereal. Like I could just eat Cheerios and oatmeal and that's it. Yeah, for the longest time. So it was very poor dieting. It wasn't until about 10, 12 years later that I started to dive into it and do my own research about nutrition.
Yeah, that's a heck of a restrictive diet there, Cheerios and oatmeal. I would imagine that would get old pretty quickly. So how was that taking a toll on you, cardiovascularly, right? So you've been this athlete, you're swimming, I mean, tip top shape. You're having these flare ups, you're in pain. It's not exactly like you can go out running if you can't even make it to the bathroom.
Nope. No. Oh no. I gave up fitness completely. Like completely gave it up. My doctors and my mom were like, you need to get moving. My mom was really encouraging me. And I just thought, how on earth do you expect me to move when I can't even make it to the bathroom? And I used to get mad. I was like, I have bad joints. At this point, I pretty much have joint damage in my right knee. And I just was in disbelief. I was like, I will not move. So I was eating unhealthy and I wasn't moving because I couldn't. And again, I mean, the doctors would encourage me to move, but it was kind of just like before I left the office, they'd be like, okay, maybe try to get a little bit exercise in. Go ahead, go try this. And I'm like, oh God, I had no guidance. But yeah, so my health was just very poor.
All right, so we've got Cheerios and we've got oatmeal, but I mean, like, were you going for comfort food at any point? Were there pints of ice cream that would disappear? Were there trips to the drive-through? What else was happening?
French fries. That was another thing that didn't trigger me. I actually wasn't a sweet eater, so no ice cream for me, but all the salty things, which if you have RA is not the best thing. Sodium, not good. And I would eat French fries, cheese plates. Oh my, the charcuterie boards. My boyfriend and I would just eat cheese plates all the time. Meat on it too. I did eat back then. I was a little bit of a vegetarian, but I was just eating anything that wouldn't hurt. But no, not ice cream, but French fries all the way, like every other day.
I got you. Yeah, you're not alone with that one either. That is for daggone sure. Were you
Mhm.
able to tell a difference like right away after you would eat something that was high in sodium? So French fries, it seems like you were able to at least tolerate, but were there certain foods that you were able to identify like, I know if I eat this, I'm going to pay the price for it?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, French fries, gastro problems would be okay, but joints would get inflamed. At this point, when I was just had a really poor diet, my joints were not great. And soy sauce was one of them. I did try to avoid soy sauce at the time. But at this point with my poor diet, my joints just felt very achy. It wasn't until I really dived in nutrition and really changed my diet to plant-based that I noticed I felt better. So yeah, no, like everything, I was just achy all the time.
So what made that connection for you? Was it as simple as, "Oh, when I eat this, this happens, so let me see if there is more of a connection here between what it is I'm eating and all of these flare-ups?"
Oh yeah, I did notice that. So with like the sodium intake, I started cooking my own food, and I am a terrible cook. So it's definitely possible. I never cry, but I will cry in the kitchen. Like that is how awful of a cook I am. But I decided to start making my own food and cooking without salt, without all that sodium. And then I started to notice a difference. Like, wow, okay, they put a ton of sodium in food when you eat out. And because I'm a terrible cook, my boyfriend and I were always eating out constantly, even like right before COVID, just always eating out. And when I noticed when I cooked at home, I would feel a lot better. So
There you go. So that was kinda like the precipice for all of
mhm.
this, right? It planted the seed, and then I'm assuming then you just kinda went down that rabbit hole like so many people do, and you start looking at more and more and more things. You get on Google and finally it takes you in a healthier direction.
Oh yeah. And then I started, so as I said, I didn't know anybody with RA. So I started my Instagram account and just because I needed to reach out to people who were going through the same thing. And through that, I met hundreds of people with RA. One of them being one of my best friends who lives out in San Francisco. And I noticed that she was plant-based. And we never really talked about it, but then she casually talked about it with me and was like, hey, have you ever thought about this? And I was like, I don't know, it sounds too hard. And she says, well, it really like helps me. And I was like, okay, I will do anything. Like I tried all the diets, Chuck, like AIP, I did all of them you could possibly try. And none of them really helped. But when she said that, I was like, all right, I'm going to try. So I slowly leaned into it. And I noticed a significant difference, enough to celebrate. And then there was this one time where I introduced dairy back into my diet. I think somebody was cooking for me and I just started eating it again. And after about a week or two, I felt awful. And that's when it hit. I felt so sick. My joints were really achy, and I've never experienced achiness like that. Like my whole body was achy. And I was like, what did I do? And I was like, oh, wow, I've been eating dairy for 2 weeks. And so then I cut it out completely. And I noticed a big change when I went to my rheumatologist and we did labs. And she comes in the room and she's like, what are you doing differently? Like, what's happening? Your inflammation levels are so low. Like, we won't even need to test you next time. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what's happening. And then I was like, oh, I went plant-based. Could that be it? And she cheered. She started jumping up and down and she was clapping for me. And it was a great celebration. So that is actually the first time nutrition came up in a conversation with doctors. And that was about 12 years after my diagnosis.
Okay, so you had an undercover plant-based doctor, basically. Like, why in the world didn't y'all have that conversation sooner, Allie?
I know. I said that to her, and she was like giving me all these podcasts and these recommendations, and she was giving me high fives, and it was the best appointment I've ever had. And I'm like, I don't know why we didn't talk about this sooner. And I don't know why, because a lot of people message me in my DMs and they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm eating plant-based. And they're like, oh, okay. And I'm like, why hasn't a doctor ever like talked about nutrition? They always ask me about nutrition, and they say that they don't talk about it with their doctors. And I'm like, I feel like this needs to be discussed way more.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
no kidding. And so like on a scale of 1 to 10, if you could just quantify this for us, compare like, how painful your symptoms were previously to where you are today.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I guess 10 being like pain.
10 being most improved.
Most improved.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm at like we still have issues. But when it comes to inflammation, I'm at like an 8 or a 9 now, which is really exciting. Before it was, I would say 0. Like I couldn't walk. So quality of life is terrible. I had to quit my job. I didn't really have much of a life. So 0, now I'm like 8 or 9.
Yeah, I would say so, because here's the part that we haven't gotten to yet. It's you didn't really go back into TV production. Maybe you did, but today you're a freaking trainer. Like
Oh,
you
yeah.
just went from like 0 to 100 with this stuff. And like, wow, if that isn't really a testament to the importance of proper nutrition, Allie, I don't know what is.
Yes, yeah. So I am a personal trainer now. I never ever thought that would ever happen, especially if you told 50-year-old me who couldn't walk if I was going to be a trainer. I wouldn't believe you. But yes, with nutrition mixed with being on proper medication and exercising every single day, I made it. And it was a long time. It took me about 2, 3 years. And I would start out with walking. And then I started with 20 minutes of low impact a day. But the thing that was different is I was consistent. Like I did it every single day. And if I had a flare, I always say this on Instagram, but if I had a flare, I would dance in my chair, anything to get moving. If I couldn't walk, then I would move my upper body. If my upper body was flaring, I would go for a walk, like anything. And after a good year, I was doing really well. I even went for a run, which is like unheard of when you have RA. And so, yeah, consistent, you guys, just be consistent. It really helps with nutrition and with fitness.
Did you kind of gravitate toward that just so you can kind of thumb your nose at RA? Like, haha, you're not going to get the best of me. I'm going to go be a trainer now and yeah, bleep, whatever.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Especially because I was so athletic growing up, and I was bringing awareness online. Like I like to make really funny videos on TikTok, especially if I don't feel well. That's my outlet, is I make funny videos about it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get back into fitness. I'm going to try it, and I'm going to prove to my body. I'm going to prove RA wrong. I'm going to prove that I can do it. And I just kept going and like, wow, I can really do this. And now I feel like I'm not as great as I was when I was a swimmer. We tend to mourn our past selves, but we do have to celebrate how far we've come. And I still celebrate every single day the fact that I can like jump and I can dance. And I teach a dance fit class like 4 times a week. And the fact that I can just like get up and move, I just celebrate it all the time. I think it's too cool.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? So that feeling is never going to leave you. I know exactly what it is you're talking about, being 13 years removed from version 1.0. And it I still identify so much with that old person. It makes me appreciate this new body that I'm still inhabiting, and all of the things that I'm able to do now that once just seemed like a complete pipe dream. So I guarantee you 13 years from now, 20, 30 years from now, you're going to have that same enthusiasm. It's never going to leave you. I promise.
No, no, I'm still so excited. Oh my goodness. That's why I bring awareness and I make really funny videos every day because I'm just so excited to move.
That's awesome. Okay, so we know what the old diet looked like, and we know that now you're eating a plant-based diet. But let's dive into some specifics there. When we're talking about what are the favorite foods of Ali DiGiacomo, what are we talking about?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so like I said, I'm not a good cook, right? And you don't have to be like I'm awful. So I tend to eat the same things every day. For me, it's a quinoa bowl. Like, we'll start with overnight oats in the morning or some type of oatmeal with lots of berries and fruit, and then a quinoa bowl full of veggies. Those are my go-to. You honestly, I call it like the refrigerator meal. Like, just go in your fridge, grab any veggies you have, heat them up on a pan with some quinoa, something crunchy in there to make it fun, and that you're good to go. It's so easy, you guys. I swear, if you can't cook, I promise you can do that. It's so easy.
Oh, that sounds really good, actually. And yeah, that's kind of what I discovered too. It's like just grab the stuff that's in your fridge, and like 9 times out of 10, it's gonna go so well together with like
Yeah.
no effort. It's
Mhm.
amazing. Like I always talk about the kitchen sink salad. So you've got your quinoa bowl. I've got the kitchen sink salad where it's just like, okay, what vegetables do I have in there that I can roast? Oh, okay, boom, let's throw that on a bed of greens. And it's always flippin' delicious.
Yeah, yeah.
Always,
It's
always.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And people are like, "How are you doing a plant-based diet? Like, it's so hard." And I'm like, "It's really not." Like, and I can't cook, and I'm telling you that. Like, people think they have to be professional, like chefs, to do it. And I'm like, "You guys know, like, I just eat oatmeal and quinoa and I'm good."
Yeah, really. So
It's
it
yeah,
I
but it's yeah, and I do try to venture out and make really fun bowls. Like, there are so many recipes online, and I know you have your nice cream, which I'm gonna have to get the recipe for that because I always hear you talk about that. And get some nice cream. Oh my goodness, no, it's so much fun, and I feel better, and you just it's more fun to cook when you feel better afterwards too.
Oh, no question. No question whatsoever. And yeah, I will definitely hook you up with that. And then I'll give you the base, and then you can kind of tinker with it and make it your own, right? So it's kind of like the quinoa bowl. There's nothing you can put in there that's really gonna make it suck except for onions. I wouldn't recommend putting onions or garlic in there. Um, but let's talk seriously, like right now. I want to talk about. You say that you are still using medication, which
Mhm.
is great. So you're kind of using what we have as far as pharmaceuticals, whatever it is that you want to call it. But you're using that in addition to nutrition. So you're kind of getting that one-two combination. Now, here's why I bring this up. Because there is a segment of the population out there who is very much anti-traditional medicine, and a lot of times believe that if you go the holistic route, that can be everything. And Ali, I wish to God that that was the case for everything. It's not, though. And so, how do you deal with that type of criticism?
Oh goodness, I call them the medicine shamers. And people in the autoimmune disease community deal with that a lot. That's actually something I struggled with mentally when I was going through it. Is you wouldn't expect, but a lot of people would slide into your DMs and be like, "You shouldn't be on this medication, and you really need to do this." And my favorite line is they come at me and they're like, "You need to be plant based," and I'm like, "Ma'am, I am a trainer. Like, I am plant based." Yeah, and they come at you, and it's really difficult, especially like if you don't know anybody in the community. You can have friends and even family. Like, family will reach out and be like, "You really shouldn't be on these toxic drugs," and you're like, "Listen, I don't want to be on these drugs, but I need them to live." And for me, it did help me live. They helped me walk. Um, and so I'm always advocating for this, and I'm all about balancing. Like, do the holistic approach on top. If you need the medication, take the medication. Balance, do both of them. If you're able to live holistically on that, then that's great. I cheer you on. That's awesome. But some of us can't. And so just don't put us down, because we don't want to inject ourselves once a week. It's not fun. I promise. I know I make funny videos about it, but we really don't want to shove a needle in our thigh every week. But it does help us live. But I think it's best to do the two. So don't just take medication and go to McDonald's every day. Some people do that. Sometimes their doctors, unfortunately, don't tell them about the holistic approach. And so some people see a naturopath as well, which I think is great. But yeah, do both. Do health and fitness. If you need medication, okay, that's great. Do all of that. Work with your doctor. Talk to your doctor about nutrition. Don't be afraid to speak up about it. I know it gets a little nerve-wracking when you get to the doctor's office, but I like to keep a list. I get in there and I'm like, let's go over all these things. So yeah.
No, that's cool. And the way that I look at that with RA or any other condition is that, think about how much more medication you would need if you weren't eating a plant-based diet, right? Like it's night and day. You were just talking about
Right, yeah.
people will take the meds and go to McDonald's. I guarantee you that crew is not working as a personal trainer either,
Yeah.
and they're going to be far more prone to flare up. So you do get an incredible quality of life. And I do wish personally, I can't speak for the organization, that there wasn't so much shame associated with it. And I know that there's also guilt that can come in. You were just talking about feeling guilty from time to time, and so just do the best that you can do with all of the tools that you have available. And that's,
Yeah.
again, not me speaking for the organization. That's just me speaking from my heart. So
Yeah, and listen, if you do both, like if you say like me, I got a plant-based diet, I was able to go down on my medication, which I was think that was really great. So after that appointment, we lowered one of the nasty drugs that I'm on, and we celebrated that. That was really cool. So yeah, if anything, maybe you can start lowering it. I'm not going to be off of it, probably they said ever, but I mean, going lower is just that's awesome. So I'm going to continue, with nutrition and fitness, and I really encourage every spoonie to do that.
for sure. And look, obviously you're just one story, but we just did this incredible study here at the Physicians Committee looking at the benefits of a plant-based diet, specifically for people who are living with RA, and the benefit, the improvement that they experienced was off the charts, just like yours. So many of these study participants, they got their freaking life back, Allie.
I
A
know, I
life
read
that
it.
they thought that they were robbed of years ago, and suddenly they have it back. And it's just like, that is the greatest gift that they could possibly be given. And I'm sure that they are all living with that same zest, that same zeal, that same enthusiasm that you have every morning now when you wake up.
Yes, I read that study. It was really cool. I was telling people at the gym, I was like, look at this study, like me. It was really cool.
Yeah. Well, that is super cool. And here's the thing: if you are on TikTok, if you are on Instagram, I highly recommend giving Allie a follow. Another Day with RA is the handle to follow. Very catchy, by the way. I like that a lot. Yeah.
Thank you.
You are very creative on there, with the music and stuff. I can see why you have 100,000 plus followers, and I'm sure in time you're going to have 100,000 more, no doubt. But I
Thank
do
you.
appreciate you taking the time to be here today, sharing an incredible story, and I'm so happy for you. Like, congratulations, getting your life back. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you. It warms my heart hearing that. Thank you so much.
If your health IQ is a couple of points higher than it was a few minutes ago, go ahead and like this video or subscribe to the YouTube channel. And to take it even higher, head over to Apple Podcast or wherever you get your favorite shows. Look for The Exam Room by the Physicians Committee. Hit the subscribe button there as well and help to make your world a healthier place.